At short break, you're still watching Press Wall. My name is Darren Bartlett and I'm your host. And in the studio, I still have Honorable Patrick, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, and Dr. Sarah discussing the major events of the week. And by the time we went into that break, we were discussing the issue of censoring Honorable State Minister for Housing and Urban Planning, that is Patrice Namuganza. And Patrick, I don't know, in a jolly way, or it certainly admitted that Parliament is corrupt. But well, that's what
all institutions,
all institutions,
including Parliament,
yeah,
are corrupt.
At least I didn't want to be misquoted.
All institutions in the country.
All right, Honorable Dembo here had a reaction before we went to the break. You had a reaction to his submission.
I don't want. I'm not a member of Parliament. This Parliament.
But you still hold that title.
I have been to Parliament before. I want to disagree. I don't think Parliament is corrupt. And these issues of space, that they don't have time, they don't have what. You know, space, you struggle for space. I want to tell you that when there were issues at one time in the 6th Parliament, the system not forced, but asked the Speaker to leave the Parliament. The Right Honourable Pakaburu did not complete his term of 5 years as Speaker of Parliament.
He was reassigned.
He was reassigned other responsibilities. That is how powerful the system was, even then, the types of speakers that we had.
That was.
Because he was reassigned, and Honourable Ayume was encouraged to come up, and he was elected or designated, and he was approved by Parliament as the Speaker. And he did a fantastic job. Right now, Honourable Anita Mong is doing a good job. The only missing link is what I said before. That because she became Deputy Speaker, and in the same year she became Speaker, she missed the nurturing and mentoring of the senior speaker who would have had experience in the Kuda. But when you look at what she has done within this short period of time, you see that she has made tremendous progress, and I'm very sure that by mid-term she is going to be excelling and performing miracles and wonders. But that does not substitute. There are things that naturally come because you have had an opportunity to serve with people who knew better than you longer. Judiciary, look at the judiciary. You cannot become, that's why they tell you to become a Supreme Court judge or to become a justice of the of the courts of law. You must have had 10 years experience as an advocate or in service as a magistrate or in similar positions. In order to acquire the experience, that you'll be required to use at that level. This one occurred naturally, that the Speaker died, and the Deputy Speaker was allowed by the Central Executive Committee to contest for the position of Speaker, and she became Speaker. And all we can do now is to try as much as possible to encourage the members of Parliament to learn what they are supposed to do. I remember my experience. I was one of the persons who was very close to Honorable Kadaga when we were in the House. But our initial experience was very rough. We disagreed. Let me give you an example. We disagreed on the floor. But when I went back home, I discovered that I was a little bit harsh and unfair. And the following morning at 7 a.m. in the morning, I went to Honorable Kadaga's office. And I said, Madam Speaker, is it me who misunderstood you? Or did I act irrationally? That interaction helped me do two things. The first one is courtesy and pay respect to a Deputy Speaker, who was the Deputy Speaker then. Secondly, I, with decorum, apologized because of my conduct, which I thought was a little bit below the bar. But thirdly, it created affection between me and the Right Honourable Kadaga, and this gave me an opportunity that every time I stood up when I had something to say.
It was easy for you to catch her eye.
Yeah, it was very easy.
But
and these are things.
So let me ask you an interesting question here, because you were saying that, you know, the Speaker needs some level of experience and Now, here's a situation where you have two, let me say, the Speaker and her deputy have both not been in such positions for quite some time. So are you saying that it's going to face a challenge of experience?
No,
The leadership.
Who nurtured Wapakablo?
in such a
That
situation,
position.
in such a situation, I'll answer that question when I come back. In such a situation, we need to rely on the presence of senior legislators always to give guidance to the House. Even to those previous speakers, I want to tell you, if Honorable Wapakablo was presiding over a house and she got stuck, many times they do, when they were presiding, knowing what decision should be done without necessarily reverting to voting. Honorable Wapakablo would preempt somebody to speak, even when somebody had not asked for a microphone, for instance. He would say, Honorable Ben Wacha, those are the people he usually looked at. He would say, Honorable Ben Wacha.
Because they had previous experience.
Yes, you look as if you wanted to say
something to
you
say.
have something to say.
So the issue of Honorable Anite, Right Honorable Anite, not being nurtured, is demystified by
Exactly.
the conduct of Wapakablo, who had also not been a speaker.
No, Wapakablo.
But also,
No, let me give you the. Let me answer that one.
but
Yes.
just 1 minute
Wapakablo.
before you answer.
Yes, please.
Even the members you're talking about, even our speakers today, preempt people like Abdu Katuntu to raise up people like Nandala Mafavi, people like Segona. They do. So,
Honor Wapakablo presided over the Constituent Assembly.
Yes,
And you know-
that was the first
And you
time.
know how he performed it so well.
Wonders.
And he was identified by his colleague with whom they stayed in the same room in the university. But Honorable Wapakablo had been to Australia and those other countries where he had risen through the system when he was in exile, serving and working. But all said and done, may I want to assure you
the system
that
is still
Honorable
working.
Anita Moore is doing a good job. She's perfecting as she runs and learns. Honorable Tayebwa, recently you saw the issue of Zake when it came up on the floor. And that's one of the areas where I saw that they are likely to get challenges because they have been allowing matters of national importance coming up anyhow. And now when this time Zake came and grabbed the
Because it's
microphone.
abductions and they don't want to
Mm.
discuss. Then they revert to rules.
But,
Let me make this point. Just
But
to summarize your point.
I want to
Let's
tell
summarize your point.
Honorable Samba that Parliament is given powers in the Constitution. But at times this space is fought for. One of the ways we fought for the Parliament of Uganda is when they moved a private member's bill in order to, the Administration of Parliament Act. That was a private member's bill in order to delink Parliament from the executive.
In
When
a
in
few
the
seconds.
sixth, in the sixth Parliament, when it had just come in, Parliament was a department under office of the President. And if the budget was cut for the office of the President, even the budget for Parliament would be cut and the sessions would be reduced because of that. Until the Administration of Parliament Act was
You
passed.
see, you're missing the point, Honorable Dombo.
I wanted him to finish
Which
because I want to
point?
come to Sarah here.
You're missing the point. The point we are talking about is Parliament handling the pertinent issues for the people of Uganda. The Parliament you are in versus the Parliament of today. A matter like that of abduction, would it have come and rubbished away in your Parliament that you attended?
I'll answer that one, and I've also done,
Emmanuel, conclude on
as
that
I
point.
conclude on that one.
Yes, because I want to
Parliament,
move, yeah.
Unfortunately, I saw this trend come up. Parliament has decided to politicize. They have not gone above their political differences outside during electioneering. I've told the people before that when police first caned, the first member of Parliament who was caned by police was Honorable Nabila, who was member of the opposition. I disagreed, and I am the one who brought a motion on the floor to put up a select committee to investigate the conduct of the police. Under what circumstances would the member of Parliament doing her work in her constituency be flogged in the Owino market?
And in,
Now,
in 2017,
and now, when you see the people, members of the opposition, the way they argue when they bring out their matters, and the way at times they respond to their colleagues across the aisle, reduces parliament to a partisan institution where people can only work in their respective caucuses. That is not the way parliament is supposed to do. And the only way they are going to overcome that is to progressively ensure that they build cohesion on processes and systems, but also, like right now it's currently happening, there is a meeting between the opposition, the leader of government business, and the government side about the abductions. And progressively, something is coming up. This is how civility works in democratic systems, not just jumping up with a microphone and ambushing the speaker.
All right, Sarah, you were taking so many notes when the two gentlemen were speaking.
And I reached the time and stopped.
Because you took him now a lot. Did your page get done? You can.
No, I want to start where Honorable Dombo has concluded. And my first question is, why is NRM abducting people? Why is NRM?
Is it NRM?
Yes, there are the people in government, the party in power. So what the conduct of power today is NRM. They are the regime.
Okay.
So my question, and it's Human Rights Day today, International Human Rights Day.
You confuse your point.
The theme is dignity, freedom, and justice. My question is, why is NRM using kidnaps and torture as political leverage to keep power? The second issue goes back to the general debate, the degeneration in our governance. And again, it goes back to NRM and monetization or commercialization of politics. And I like the position of the speaker, it was traded on table.
Traded?
Yes. The position of speaker, the way NRM wins. I am in my second heart, I am the chair of Eastern Horn of Africa Election Observers Network. But I also observed the 2021 elections as a Center for Constitutional Governance. NRM uses two things to keep power, money and violence. So when you procure power using money and violence,
And guns.
what outcome do we expect as a country?
Exactly.
And that's why I agree with the Honorable Samba's submission. The total degeneration, to the extent that the state, now NRM, because they are the ones occupying the state of Uganda, whose cardinal duty is to protect citizens with their property, is abducting people, is behaving like Boko Haram, is behaving like Al-Shabaab. And because of the nature of degeneration of institutions, even parliament cannot debate. Abductions cannot call people to account. When you call UPDF, when you call police, the first institution that's supposed to keep law and order, they will tell you, we don't know who is abducting Ugandans.
Let
me first conclude on the same point. Okay.
Just on the same point,
Yes.
you say that the parliament cannot debate because they'll be abducted.
Of course, even opposition MPs can be abducted. Is it news?
I have a question that will come ahead. On
Yes.
that. I just wanted to get
Yes,
that.
they were abducted when they were debating age limit. We discovered where they were the next day from chambers. Weren't they? Weren't they?
Actually, not an abduction is an understatement.
Yes, they were beaten in the chambers, taken
what
for
is
unprecedented areas.
An
MPs.
understatement. What happened to
Weren't
Parliament
they?
in 2017?
Okay, but besides that,
No, I know where I'm going to go. I know where I'm going.
Call police. Say you are in charge of keeping law and order. Why are citizens disappearing? They will tell you, we don't know what is happening. When you ask police, Department of Traffic, which is supposed to implement the traffic laws in this country that prohibit any vehicle without number plates from being on any road, they will tell you they don't know who's running drones, numberless minibuses which are now called drones. They don't know. When you go to sister agencies, UPDF, they will tell you they don't know. So who is in charge of this country? And who is abducting people? Can NRM tell us? The party in power. When you go to the speaker, I want to make the last point on the degeneration. I want to use an example when you are passing a loan that was borrowed through Stanbic with other agencies. There was a debate on the floor and the clip that went viral the speaker put the question. And the nose had it. The nose were bigger than the eyes.
Yes.
So yes, then she ran away, said, I have it. Then she ran away and forgot to adjourn the house. Then midway, she adjourned the house while running. Because
And these things happen.
because
I
more
miss,
than,
And do you know why the speaker
because
reaches
more
that
than
point?
40 people had stood up to oppose her ruling. It was wrong because the rules provide that once you rule and 40 MPs, minimum of 40, stand up, then you recall your decision. Because she saw people standing up and she was running away. She had to urgent approve on the run. So that is really the basics. So when Parliament adjusts decorum, the biggest abusers are the leaders of that Parliament, of the so-called decorum. So how do you then demand it of the people you're supposed to lead when you don't have it? General Chamuntu like saying you can never give what you don't have. Do they have it themselves to be able to steer it now?
An interesting submission there, and I'm going to drive it back to our topic we started with the Pastor Namuganza's issue. So do you say that the words or her statements she uttered on TV about the incompetence of the Parliament, would you say that she's right?
Except she's also among the incompetent.
So do you think she would be censored?
Maybe she should first start by censuring herself. She could have a point. But how about her own conduct? She's among the worst.
So generally, speaking now on what we think will happen, do you think she'll be censored successfully?
If she believes in the statement she made, I'm calling upon her to resign, both as a minister and an MP. But yes, Parliament has gaps.
Honorable Patrick, you still maintain the statement that she will not be censored?
The Namuganza, wouldn't
Because that has to summarize this. That's why I'm asking that.
wouldn't
Just want to
have
get your
any problem apologizing or really resigning or being calm. But I told you she has a script she's working with, and that script will not give her that opportunity. The Prime Minister is not aware of that. That's why the Prime Minister is coming to plead. The other members of the NRM do not know the script. The script is with herself. But I trust Anita Among has been there before. She has worked in similar ways. Probably she knows the game. We are just watching.
So you think
we are just
she's not going to be censored?
We are just going to watch the space. But I know if what I believe is right and what I think is right, you'll see many members of the NRM, just a mere call, you'll see them all getting back.
At most, some.
So you believe she will not be censored?
I think so.
That is
she will not be censored.
Okay. Honorable Emmanuel, do you think she will be censored?
I'm a very senior member of Parliament Emeritus, and there is a specific rule of procedure preventing speculation on any matter that is before the House. Totally. You cannot speculate what government is going to bring and you bring it for discussion. There is a specific provision. I wouldn't want to make a conclusion that may influence what is going to be decided. But let me say this. It was easier to censure a member of Parliament under a movement system when we did not have party caucuses. Right now, we have political party caucuses in which members of Parliament can either be prevailed over, because Honorable Namuganza, if the matter becomes so serious that it requires a censure, then within the caucus, she can be advised on what to do by the members of the caucus. And the chair, and the good thing is that even the appointing authority also sits in the caucus and can be asked questions and he can provide questions. One thing I don't know is whether this committee, either of rules or the ad hoc committee, had an opportunity to interact with the president to find out what Namuganza was saying whether it was right or not. Because previously the committees would do that, they would go to Parliament and have an interface with the
They'll
President.
go to State House?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you do, ordinarily you do want to summon the President. But it is ridiculous, even when he emphasizes the separation of powers, but going to the President in State House under his ambience and you interact with him, it doesn't prevent him from giving you the information that you would require.
Okay.
That
Can
would just be an issue of
You want to give him information?
Well,
I wanted us to conclude
yes,
this topic.
let me
in
give
2
you
minutes.
information on issues. One, when in the process of censure of Honorable Kutesa, which you led, you met the president.
Yes, I
and
did.
you were able to make your case and say we are proceeding.
Yes.
And he let you be. So why are you saying that now the ambience cannot allow? My second question is, with your approval, Mr. Moderator, I want to know from him his point of view on the abductions in this country. Who is abducting?
I'm going to talk about
You've
them.
been left. Okay. Now let me add you.
And also, as you finalize, you remember that Honorable Zaka was censured recently
As a
As a
commissioner.
commissioner.
through was it a matter of
Mob justice.
mob justice. Also comment about it in line with this.
You people, if you
Now,
want,
now I'll give you an extra minute. So you have 2 minutes
if
to
you want
conclude on
to,
that.
you should
2
give me
minutes.
consultants in Parliament.
Consultants, you're talking about your state.
Yes.
Please, just 2 minutes and we continue.
During the censure of the ministers, I didn't meet the president before the censure. The president invited me after the censure had been finished. And,
But there was an caucus meeting.
the president had invited some senior members of parliament, had advised me not to go and meet the president. And the president had written to the speaker of parliament saying he wanted to meet the petitioner, Honorable Raboni, and by coincidence, both of us are now serving at the NRM Secretariat. Honorable Raboni was the seconder, and other members of parliament. We went and met the president. We interfaced and discussed the reasons. And I think a week or so later, he reorganized the government and considered the decision that had been taken by parliament. That was the time when we were just struggling for the space. And there was decorum, but also the president respected the manner in which we conducted many of the things that we did. On the issues of abductions, which are taking place, I want to tell you, I have said this before, first and foremost, abductions, torture, and the kind, our laws don't permit it. If you read the law in Uganda, when we were in parliament, we discovered that there are many law enforcers who would hide behind their offices to say that they have been directed, they have been commanded, or they are acting on behalf of the state. That is why we had to make the subsequent law to say that even when you do it on behalf of the state, but you had a conscience to say no because you're a human being, then you are going to pay the price as an individual, and the law will follow you at personal level. When the president consented to these laws, this was a very progressive act because the laws exist, we can use them and let people use them. But what I disagree, and I've said this before in various media houses, when you politicize an activity, you weaken its cause. For instance, the other day there was a meeting between the member of parliament, the leader of the opposition, the speaker, and the leader of government business. And they asked the list of the tortured victims. And somebody said, we gave you a list, and there is no reason why we should give you another list again. Is the list of torture victims constant? Aren't there people who have been arrested, tortured, and released? Aren't there people who have been subsequently arrested or abducted, as you say? So this list keeps changing. But to you,
Who is abducted?
no, people, the Minister for Internal Affairs has inquired. Because to
You
me,
also don't know.
the Minister for Internal Affairs has come up to state that. But let me conclude with this one. In America, where there was this gentleman who was killed by kneeling on his neck, was that the Republican Party doing it? It was a state agent. But nobody accused the Republican Party that you Republican Party, why are you doing this? Because these are officers of government and they have been tried before the courts of law as individuals. And when you make something partisan, you weaken its cause even at the time when you should have come together. I want to encourage my brothers in the opposition. Ask the Minister for Internal Affairs.
Let me conclude this point.
Ask the Minister for Internal Affairs, ask the Minister for Security, because they are the ones whom you pay and you provide with resources to ensure that the people of Uganda are safe. Ask the right questions in the right forum.
Actually, now since we had a conversation on NRM, now that today is International Human Rights Day, I think let's just take that direction there. I have decided, and so we will take that direction. You are emphasizing on the question of abductions and torture and all those things. Let's go back to a point that I think in 2019 the Human Rights Enforcement Act was passed, right? I want to start from there and ask, how have we managed, how far have we achieved, or how much have we achieved since this act was passed in 2019 to today? Is there a change? Because we saw very nice laws that were put across. I actually have an act right in my hands here. And do you see progress?
You know, you're asking me a very technical question. How
you're in Parliament, the people who pass these laws.
How much will
you get reports?
Achieved? I think that will require research to tell us. I want to speak from the point of view of a Ugandan. As a Ugandan, what I observe and what goes on in this country. When this regime, by the way, I want to first say it is unfair to say NRM means this regime. There are some Ugandans who are in NRM genuinely as a political party.
Of course.
As a political party.
Of course, but they also party.
It is unfair. It is unfair.
I will withdraw
He
that.
actually said it before that you were there.
Exactly. It is unfair to say
Withdraw.
Exactly. So when this regime came in power, among the things they highlighted, what they wanted to liberate Ugandans from, they were trying to liberate Ugandans from tyranny of the previous regime. And what were the previous regimes doing? Abduction of people, torturing Ugandans, arrest without detention without, there is a statement how they call it in English.
Detention without trial.
Without trial. There are so many things they highlighted. And the reasons why Ugandans supported General Museveni in his war, and I think many Ugandans should never support anyone to pick on guns, claiming that he's fighting for us. Those are some of the key critical things they highlighted. And when you look at the scorecard of the regime in terms of the human rights record, I think it is so appalling. In this country, you cannot hold, even if you're civil society, you cannot hold a protest or a demonstration of your dissatisfaction of any nature, except if it is the regime, because I think the last one we saw, the demonstration in town was when the regime was demonstrating against corruption, its own corruption.
It was ECOP.
ECOP, the NRM supporters were
No. ECOP, they picked children, our children, they called them for another reason. They were secondary school students. They called them for a conference. Children came for conference. When they reached there, they gave them placards and told them, let us move. And they were forced to move for that. That was a
But for them, at least they are
But there was a demonstration by adults, not students, who
Even
actually went to
other
the EU
NRM
office.
That is what I'm talking
And
about.
handed
They were
over.
students. They were students, not
No,
you.
they were
You pick the script. You'll see they were students who were picked from the different schools, brought for a conference, and they thought they had come for a conference. When they reached there, and the youth
Musa.
Wunsa, and they sent them for demonstration. That wasn't a demonstration. If you asked those students, they would never even told you that this is the purpose what we are doing.
Okay.
Now, in this country, you can't show your dissatisfaction. So, if you're talking about in a democratic dispensation, as they want to call it, that we are in a democracy, where people cannot express to the state that we are not happy with this, it is very unfortunate. We have seen the highest situation to do with the political actors. That in this country, you must be a son of the president to do politics now. You can't. Even if somebody from NRM mentioned to say, I want to stand for president, they will harass him, they will mistreat him. You ask what they did to Mbabazi. And Mbabazi was the last one to come from NRM to have interest in the presidency. In what? They will criminalize you the way they've criminalized the Chagulanyi, that even when he walks on the street, they will come and arrest him, and they say he's going to cause... so for them, the only person who has the right now to go and do politics is General Mohozi, because he's the president's son. When you come to matters to do with, because I've moved from the dissatisfaction, the public cannot. That's why today, the poor Ugandans think that members of parliament can speak for them. And they are so disappointed, even these ones, they think that I can speak for them. You know, when we move there, they say, Honorable Mutuogereyo, because for them they have no space. The space that there was for civil society organizations in this country, because civil society would do play and say, we are defending Ugandans' human rights abuse. Now, show me one organization now which is still talking about human rights abuse in this country. And that institution has not been attacked by the state or state agencies.
Just hold on there, because when you ask that question, I am going to ask whether Sarah, Dr. Sarah here, cannot talk about human rights today, but she's here. So she can tell us, you asked, so she's an ED of one of them.
What Honorable Nsamba is saying, you know, just last year, after elections, 54 organizations were closed, and many of them were working in governance. Center for Constitutional Governance was not closed.
Mm-hmm.
We have not been closed, and we were yet, and we work on human rights. But maybe what he's insinuating, we were invited by the Kenya Human Rights Commission in a meeting in Kenya, where torture victims appeared, and I saw the Minister of Internal Affairs wants now to investigate the Kenya Human Rights Commission about that meeting.
Yeah, it was an instruction that you...
Yes.
It is treason.
I was invited as a panelist in that meeting together with Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. We were in the panel.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 3 NGOs, together with Imam Kasozi, 4 civil society actors that were in that meeting. So I saw the Minister of Internal Affairs calling it treason. So we don't know what that will mean. But I talk about human rights. Even when Center for Constitutional Governance is closed, I will remain a human rights defender. So
what would be your scorecard in terms of achieving human rights?
Let me use documentation. There is a World Justice Project that does annual rule of law score globally. This year they scored 140 countries, and Uganda became 128 out of 140 because of forced abductions. We went 30 places behind compared to 2019 and 2020.
What period?
Every year they score the World Justice Project. You just ask for rule of law index, global rule of law index. It has indicators including ability for citizens to access justice, protection of citizens with their property where we are failing most, access to justice, the ability to express, people to express themselves, freedom of association, expression, and freedom of media. They talk about citizens' participation in their governance. So out of that, we scored very badly. Just 2 weeks ago, Freedom House released a report on the performance of enjoyment of civil and political rights globally. Freedom House works in every country. In our place, they are led by Donald Rukari is the chief of party under the Freedom House office in Uganda. Uganda scored 34% in enjoyment of civil and political rights. That's beyond a retake. If it's a classroom, you will be asked to repeat. You can't even recite a paper. So these are the global documents. But also beyond that, there is the universal peer review mechanism by the state parties under the UN. And just last month, our Attorney General appeared and was trying to defend abductions. But the report of the committee, I think, did not listen to his sugar-coated defense, because they do investigations. They receive both state reports and shadow reports. In that process of the peer review mechanism and Uganda periodic review, Center for Constitutional Governance chairs the youth cluster. So we oversee human rights for young people. And these are the majority victims that are being abducted. In that report, we also sit on the steering committee headed chaired by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it has both state and non-state actors. And the government sends a report and civil society send shadow reports. But also member states are allowed to make reports on what they are observing in other countries. So about 5 reports were produced about Uganda. State report and other reports. And the Human Rights Committee has made recommendations about the deteriorating situation of human rights in Uganda. But before our eyes, what do we see? You don't pass 3 days in this country without seeing a notice of an abducted person, without seeing video clips of numberless vans known as drones abducting people. The Constitution in Article 23 and 28 clearly spells out the procedure of arrest in case anybody commits a crime. Identify yourself, tell the person the crime they are suspected of committing, inform their next of kin where they will be detained, allow access to lawyers, doctors, and relatives, and produce them in court within 48 hours. This is the Constitution that Uganda has. We also have laws that follow up that. Is it being done? Is this rocket science? Do we have incompetent people that are not fit to occupy offices? Those are citizens' offices. Public offices are citizens' offices. Anybody putting on a uniform, it is a citizen's uniform. Anybody holding a gun, it is a citizen's gun. If your conscience tells you to pick a citizen's gun, put on a citizen's uniform, drive a van bought by a taxpayer, and go and shoot people, and kill them, and abduct them, and torture them, you are a problem of Uganda.
That is Dr. Sarah Viter's submission. And yeah, with she had statistics and global, global studies and scores there. Dr. Emmanuel, what should be done to rectify what Patrick Nsabonarebo is saying, and also Dr. Sarah here?
You know, we do not need these statistics in order to acknowledge the challenges, some of the challenges that we're going through. You just need to listen to the president when he addressed the country about human rights, and he gave certain directives. By the time a president of a country comes up to address an issue, then you know it is definitely a matter of concern that must be addressed, because he's the fountain of honor. He took specific time to say the president is going to address the country about, and he came and gave those issues, and he gave directives. Secondly, when you get the report, the annual report of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, you can see that there has been a pattern and trend of certain criminality happening in the law enforcing agencies. And this report is given to Parliament. I want to encourage Parliament to take interest in these reports and debate them. because Parliament apparently is the only institution cushioned. It is protected and is facilitated. Coming here on radio to argue that you don't have powers, you don't have this, I don't want to believe into that. Because when I was in Parliament, nobody would give the Human Rights Commission wasn't there at that time. It came progressively later. But we would take on many issues that were under government and we would investigate them and come up with reports for action. So I want to encourage members of Parliament that do your work as provided for under the law. Secondly, let us not
Give him information.
You want to give him information?
Yes,
Yes.
Honorable Domba, I want to give you information that the president is also the commander-in-chief of the security agencies. And he's literally presiding over abductions because they are done by security agencies in this country.
You
That
know,
is information.
the commander-in-chief and the president have a dual role. When we are talking about human rights, let us also talk about our individual responsibilities as citizens of the country. To what extent can we do or enjoy our rights without offending or putting at risk the people who may be armed? And if you get a stone and you throw a stone at an armed soldier who is guarding, what do you expect him to do? You have seen what is happening right now. Guards have been killed, their guns taken. Somebody is at the center of a barracks. Somebody comes pretending he's coming to do something. Then he shoots you dead and it runs out with the guns. When such things begin happening, they also compromise the human rights enjoyment of others because it creates a situation that may degenerate into abuse. So let the state actors, but also the civilians and the citizens of Uganda become good people and law-abiding. Where all this fails to happen, let the members of Parliament, who are the representatives of the people, use the powers that they have, use the resources at their discretion to ensure if somebody has been abducted or gone missing and they cannot report the police because they fear there, every person is represented by an MP. Let them go and tell an MP, and the MP takes the record. And that can become a basis for the members of Parliament helping their communities in order to give them the courage either to go and report to the police or to ensure that some of the omissions of the state actors become reported to the authorities and then corrective action is taken.
All right. Patrick, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to summarize this because our time is fast spent. You wanted to react to his submission.
Yeah, you see, Sarah has given Honorable Domo some good information, very vital information.
That
Somebody who is, by constitution, is given responsibility of the security agencies is the president. And that was very vital information. I wanted to hear Dombo tell his information or what he's telling members of Parliament. I wish he was telling that to the security agencies, that you know, by constitution, you're given responsibility to protect the people of Uganda. Now for him,
do you want to
no, you wait. For him, he's using Parliament as a scapegoat. At least he has somebody to punch under the circumstances. But I thought you would take Sarah's information very vital. I want to remind you, do you remember when Rusambia was murdered?
Is it Zambia?
There was a famous boxer here in town.
Yes, the boxer, he had a nickname.
in Wise.
In Wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was called Zebra.
Zebra Rusambia. You remember when he was murdered?
Yes.
What did the president say?
No, the president came up and took responsibility that there was an operation. He said there was an operation and the state agency.
He said we murdered this one.
And he was our person.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was our what? Our person. So that tells you exactly that the president knows whatever is going on in this country.
Not necessarily. Let me say this.
For you,
We are running out of time.
for you, you came to punch Parliament.
No.
You came to punch members of Parliament as though members of Parliament have guns that kill people. as though members of parliament have, as though the parliamentary institution is given the responsibility to protect Ugandans with the guns. Now, I want you to use the same energy you've used on parliament to tell your state institutions to stop murdering Ugandans.
He has gotten
Tell the
information.
commander-in-chief to stop murdering
He has gotten the
Ugandans.
information.
To stop abducting Ugandans.
On the contrary, on the contrary, that's the problem I told you is happening in Parliament. I was reminding him as Member of Parliament that under the law, members of Parliament are facilitated, they are protected, and they are given a mandate to supervise the President, to supervise the agencies, and this is just a reminder of the work that you are elected to do.
Talking about parliament.
Then secondly,
we are talking
let's
about
conclude.
Ugandans
Then-
who are being abducted.
Then secondly,
You got your point.
Why get annoyed?
Ugandans are being abducted for having a red beret, just a beret.
He got
Just because she put on red. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Sarah is a colorful lady.
I hope they don't misunderstand you. Ugandans are being abducted over minor matters. And the people who abduct them, Dombo, you know them.
Honorable, he got your
Pretend
point.
that it is parliament that
He got your point. I just want us to finish this.
When I was in the Parliament and Honorable Nabira was caned by the police was a state agency. I was a Member of Parliament.
In NRA.
I brought a motion on the floor of Parliament.
This Dombo is the
This
shadow of the other Dombo.
this is what I'm telling him to do.
This is the shadow.
This is
of
what
the
I'm
other
telling him
Dombo.
to do. That as members of Parliament,
Yes.
let them use their privileged position.
I think I should come in.
as members of
I should
Parliament.
come in.
I want us to close this. Okay, your last words.
I
In
should
2
come
seconds.
in. I should come in by agreeing with both of them.
In 2
That
seconds.
Parliament has a role to play, but also Honorable Dombo should take the feedback from Honorable Samba to his chairman.
But he's watching.
His chairman, who is a commanding chief.
He has
But
gotten the information.
the back rests with him.
But
He
the
is
chairman
the
came up-
direct.
He came
No,
up
no. You see, we don't want talk. Talk is cheap. We want action.
parliament are
We
you
want
talking about?
action
When
and
we
violations of human
Honorable
rights.
Zake comes to parliament, talk about
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Dr.
talks
Sarah.
about
Yes.
abductions and
Our time is up.
our time is up in our committee.
Thank you so much for a very good debate that you've given us here. Thank you, viewers, for being with us from the hour of 9.
In the parliament, you're asking us to go.
For now,
Somebody
let's
say
take back
disciplinary
and
committee.
let's give them a
Just
proper
because of
This festive season, get ready to be served. Sanyo may have too much on her plate in taking her company to new heights. Resentment brews as the Chintu family risks losing the prestige empire. Maraca